The day my mother-in-law slid a rent invoice across my kitchen table, I thought it was a joke. But when she threatened to have me thrown out of the apartment I'd called home for years, I uncovered a secret hidden in plain sight, one that would leave my entire family speechless. My name is Emma Carter, and until 2 years ago, I believed I had married into the perfect family. I know that sounds ridiculous now. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. The controlling comments, the fake smiles, the way my mother-in-law, Patricia Reynolds, always managed to insert herself into every decision my husband and I made. At first, I convinced myself she was simply protective of her son. That's what everyone said. Patricia means well. She's just old-fashioned. She loves Daniel. I believed them, for a while. Then things started changing. It began shortly after Daniel and I got married. We moved into a beautiful apartment on the north side of the city. The place wasn't extravagant, but it was spacious. 2 bedrooms, large windows, hardwood floors, a small balcony overlooking a park. I loved it the moment I saw it. The strange thing was that Patricia seemed unusually interested in the apartment. She asked endless questions. Who owned the building? How much was the property worth? Who handled the paperwork? At the time, I thought she was making conversation. Now I know better. The apartment had originally belonged to Daniel's late grandfather. After he passed away, ownership was supposedly transferred through a family trust. Daniel always explained it the same way. Mom handles all of that stuff. And because I trusted my husband, I never questioned it. That was my first mistake. For the first year of marriage, life was peaceful. Daniel worked as an architect. I worked remotely for a publishing company. We traveled occasionally, hosted dinners, talked about starting a family. Everything felt normal, until Patricia began showing up unannounced. At first, it was once a month, then once a week, then several times a week. Sometimes she'd let herself inside using a spare key. She'd rearrange furniture, comment on our groceries, criticize my cooking, even inspect closets. One afternoon, I came home from work and found her sitting in my living room. Alone, watching television, I nearly dropped my bag. "Patricia?" She looked up casually. "Oh, good, you're home." I stared. "How did you get in?" She smiled. "I have a key. As a backup, not for daily visits." She waved dismissively. "Family doesn't need permission." Something about that sentence made my stomach tighten, but I stayed quiet. I didn't want conflict. That was my second mistake. Over the next several months, Patricia's behavior became increasingly strange. She constantly referred to the apartment as family property. Never our home, never Daniel's home, always family property. One night during dinner, she casually said, "You know, Emma, some people get very comfortable living in places they don't actually own." The comment felt directed at me. I forced a smile. "I'm not sure what you mean." Patricia sipped her wine. "I'm just saying people should appreciate generosity." Daniel immediately changed the subject. That should have concerned me. Instead, I ignored it. A few weeks later, things escalated. I came home to find Patricia and a man I'd never seen before walking through the apartment. Measuring rooms, taking notes, photographing walls. I was furious. "What is going on?" The man looked uncomfortable. Patricia remained calm. "We're doing an inspection." "Inspection for what?" She folded her arms. "Maintenance purposes." I looked at Daniel later that evening. "Why was your mother inspecting our apartment?" He rubbed his forehead. "She's probably just being Patricia." That answer wasn't enough, but I let it go. Again. Then came the invoice. The day everything changed. It was a Tuesday morning. Rain hammered against the windows. I was drinking coffee when Patricia walked into the apartment carrying a leather folder. She sat across from me at the kitchen table. Without saying a word, she slid several papers toward me. I looked down. At first, I thought it was junk mail. Then I saw the total. $2,450 monthly rent. Due, I laughed. Actually laughed. Because surely this was a joke. When I looked up, Patricia wasn't smiling. "What's this?" "Your rent invoice." I blinked. "My what?" "Your rent invoice." She folded her hands. "As of next month, you'll be expected to contribute." I stared at her. Contribute? To live here? I felt like I'd entered another dimension. I already live here. Exactly. I pushed the papers back. This apartment belongs to Daniel. Patricia's expression hardened. No, it belongs to the family. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I said the only thing I could. "You're serious?" "Very." I laughed again, this time from disbelief. "You expect me to pay rent in my own home?" Patricia leaned forward. "You need to understand something, Emma." Her voice dropped. "You've gotten far too comfortable." The words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because of how cold they sounded. Maybe because I suddenly realized she'd been planning this. For a long time. I stood. Conversation over. "Leave." Her eyebrows rose. "What?" "Leave my apartment." Patricia smiled. The smile terrified me, because it wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was confident. The smile of someone who believed they held all the power. You might want to be careful with those words. I felt my pulse quicken. "Excuse me?" She stood slowly. "If rent isn't paid, eviction procedures can begin." The room went silent. Eviction. She'd actually said it. Then she walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned around and delivered a sentence I will never forget. "Check the ownership records before you embarrass yourself." The door closed behind her. I stood frozen. For several minutes, ownership records. The words echoed inside my head. That evening, I told Daniel everything, every detail, every threat, every word. To my shock, he didn't seem angry. He seemed nervous. Very nervous. I noticed immediately. His face turned pale. His eyes avoided mine. And when I asked him directly whether Patricia could legally charge rent, he hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. A horrible feeling settled in my stomach. "Daniel." His silence answered before he did. "What aren't you telling me?" He swallowed. "Emma." My heart began racing. "What?" He looked away, then whispered 4 words. "I don't know anymore." The room spun. "What do you mean you don't know?" He sat heavily on the couch, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely afraid. The next morning, while Daniel was at work, I drove downtown. I needed answers. Real answers. Not family stories. Not assumptions. Facts. I walked into the county records office. A gray-haired clerk greeted me. I gave her the apartment address. She typed for several minutes, then frowned. "That's strange." My stomach dropped. "What?" She looked at the screen, then looked at me. Then back at the screen. "Ma'am," her voice suddenly sounded cautious. "According to these records..." She stopped. I leaned forward. My heart pounding. What do they say? The woman slowly turned her monitor toward me. The moment I saw the name listed under ownership, my entire world stopped. Because the owner wasn't Patricia. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't the family trust. It wasn't anyone I expected. And the name staring back at me changed everything. The county clerk's monitor seemed to blur in front of me. I blinked once, twice, certain I had read it wrong. But the name remained exactly where it was. Emma Carter, my name, my full legal name, listed as the registered owner of the apartment. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. The clerk looked almost as confused as I was. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I stared at the screen. "There has to be a mistake." She shook her head. "The records are official." My knees felt weak. I sat down. "This apartment belongs to me?" The clerk clicked through several documents. "It appears so." My heart hammered. "How long?" She opened another file. Then looked back at me. Almost 6 years. 6 years. I had only been married for 2, meaning I had technically owned the apartment years before becoming Daniel's wife. Nothing made sense. Nothing. The clerk printed several documents and handed them over. As I reviewed them, my confusion only deepened. The ownership transfer had come directly from Daniel's grandfather. The documents were authentic. Signed, stamped, recorded, legal. Someone had intentionally transferred ownership to me. The question was why? And why nobody had ever told me. The drive home felt surreal. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Every memory replayed differently now. Patricia's obsession with the apartment, her constant references to family property, the inspections, the threats. The rent invoice, she had known, or at least suspected. But if she knew I was the owner, why would she risk exposing herself? By the time I reached home, my head hurt. I spread every document across the dining table. Then I called Daniel. Come home. His voice immediately tightened. What happened? Now. He arrived 40 minutes later. The moment he walked through the door, he knew something was wrong. His eyes landed on the paperwork. Then on my face, then back on the paperwork. What is this? I pushed the ownership records toward him. His hands froze. The color drained from his face. He already knew. That realization hit me instantly. You knew. Emma, you knew. His shoulders sagged. Not denial, not surprise. Defeat. The silence lasted several seconds. Then he sat down. Slowly, like a man carrying a burden he'd hidden for years. I found out before our wedding. My chest tightened. You found out what? He looked at the documents. That the apartment belonged to you. I felt anger rising. Pure anger. You knew this entire time? Yes. The word landed like a punch. I stood up.